everyone. Let's go ahead and start. I call the meeting to order, the MPO-JC Urbanized Area Policy Board. Today's Wednesday, January 28th, 2026, and we're in the Iowa City City Hall. Thanks to Iowa City for letting us use these chambers. Recognize alternates. Are you going to do that, Kent?
Yeah. Kent Ralston, Executive Director. I don't think we have any alternates here tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have one new board member, Mike Knudsen from Coralville. Welcome. And he'll be taking Megan Foster's position for the City of Coralville. Welcome, Mike.
Consider approval of meeting minutes. And Kent, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in quick. So what you will all see in your meeting packet are minutes from our July meeting. The reason for that is our November meeting, we didn't have a quorum. I think it's the first time in my 20 years with the MPO that we didn't have a quorum. By no means do I think it's a trend, especially after I look around the room tonight. But I did just want to say, and just take a moment, if you know you won't be able to make it the meeting, if you could let me know anytime that day or the day before, it's a huge help. And then even better yet, if you can find an alternate, that also helps us obviously even more. And our bylaws will allow an alternate to be another elected official from your member entity, or it could even be a staff member if no other elected official is available. So just wanted to put that plug in. But like I say, I think it was an anomaly, and looking around the room tonight, we're obviously crowded in. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ken. I won't take it personal. They didn't show up. In November. July 9th minutes need to be approved. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, then we go on to set next board meeting. Kent?
Yeah, I tentatively got April 1st as our next board meeting, and like I always do, you'll get a save the date about a month in advance, and then you'll also get the actual meeting packet about a week in advance, so a couple different reminders. I've also started to, I think I mentioned at our last meeting or two, I've reached kind of a point where I'm trying to catch up with technology, so I'm actually sending a meeting invitation as well now, like an electronic meeting invitation. We had not done that previously just because not everybody used the same software we do here in the city, but hopefully that'll help as well. So again, next meeting, tentatively April 1st, you'll get plenty of reminders. Location is yet to be determined, but we'll start our typical rotation through the different communities.
Okay, we'll go on to public discussion of any item not on the agenda. Does anyone want to speak to an item? Yes. Come up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Hi, Matt Berkey with the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. We passed, the coalition along with others got hands-free passed last year after 7 years of lobbying, and the results were huge. Last year we saw the lowest traffic fatalities in the state in 100 years, less than 300. We're keeping that momentum going with a super speeders bill, and attached to that, there's a bill for reducing the school speed zone limit in Iowa from 25 to 20 miles an hour, which reduced the fatalities in school speed zones. All the surrounding states of Iowa already have that 20-mile-an-hour school speed zone limit, and right now in Iowa, it's 25 or 10 miles an hour less than the nearest road. So reach out to your state representatives if that is something you believe in, and the city or the MPO area could also start lowering their speed limits preemptively if that's something they're interested in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public want to speak? Okay, we'll go on to report from nominating committee for the 26 MPO Board of Officers. And I was on the committee with Brian from North Liberty.
We didn't have a lot of people at the last meeting, so it became de facto nominating committee. So we just went and looked at the list that we got from Kent and kind of noticed the pattern of going through cities and everything. And so, and then the vice chair becoming the chair. So we thought that that was probably the easiest. So our recommendation would be nominate Rod, who's the vice chair now, to the Board of Supervisors, from the Board of Supervisors to serve as the chair. And then the next city, kind of in the rotation, would have been Coralville. And so then we would nominate Royce from Coralville to be the vice chair. Well, that's our recommendation. So,
is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Rod.
I'm good.
I didn't vote.
Here, Rod, I'm going to pass the packet to you.
Okay.
I just
Sure you
want,
don't want your packet? I mean,
no,
I've got the
that's-
agenda.
It's got, it's for you.
Oh, okay.
Thank
I was
you.
going to just thank Rod in his vice chair capacity and Louise Fromm, of course, Mayor of University Heights, in her capacity this last year. It's been great. And just for a bit of background, too, we go through this process every year. The chair and the vice chair can only be in those positions for a total of 2 years, which both Rod and Louise had completed. And again, thank you for that. So we go through this process every year. And thanks to Rod and Royce for this coming year. I look forward to working with you.
All right. Well, thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Rod.
And thank you, everybody, for your, I guess the word is support. So let's move on to item B then, which is consider approval of the FY27 MPOJC budget and financial forecast. Ken?
Yeah, thanks. So the proposed 27 budget and 27 budget and financial forecast was attached in your packet for your review. The primary focus of the MPO continues to be fulfilling requirements necessary for MPO entities to receive state and federal funds and to produce traffic studies, grant applications, mapping services, and all the other great things that we're able to do for your communities. As a reminder, the MPO is organized as a division of the City of Iowa City's Neighborhood Development Services Department. So MPO staff also serve as NDS staff. Personnel costs are determined by the collective bargaining agreement between Iowa City and the American Federation of State and County and Municipal Employees. You'll see in the budget, the overall budget reflects about a 5.7% increase. Something like 90% of that increase, as it is most years for us, is simply salaries and benefits. After accounting for staff time for Iowa City functions, the MPO's budget is created by population. So all the assessments to your organizations are based on population. This budget also reflects the continued use of internal carryover funds, which is about $50,000, as well as $310,000 in DOT planning funds, which is an increase of about $30,000 from the last budget. Using both of those amounts help us defray your local assessments, like I mentioned. So this year, with the addition of the additional PL funds and the additional carryover funds, we're actually able to reduce everyone's overall assessments, which is a good thing. As in years past, I remain concerned with federal funding. You're all very aware of what's going on with the federal government. Funding is a little bit tricky these days. With that, so far so good with respect to the MPO's funding. We haven't seen any cuts, so to speak. We really haven't heard a whole lot from the federal government about our funding, which has been positive, to be honest. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the budget. Otherwise, I consider it sort of a status quo from years past, with the good news that we're able to actually reduce your assessments.
So we haven't heard anything about green planning or like bike infrastructure or them saying don't count on this in the future.
The only odd thing, I mean, we've heard a ton about federal funding, of course, on all different levels, but like I say, the actual federal funding as it comes to the MPO really hasn't changed, and that's both in operations and in our infrastructure funding. Infrastructure funding was actually higher last year than it had been in a while, and our operations funding, albeit it's a small amount of our budget, keeps increasing. So we really haven't heard a whole lot. Oliver, we did have a strange call at sort of the beginning of the last budget cycle that there were some certain words we weren't supposed to be using and that sort of thing, which was new to me. But we've sort of just brushed that aside, and it's just business as usual.
What words?
There were a list of something like 9 words that we were to maybe not use in some of our federal documents. But this is, yeah, it was strange. But we're also sort of in our federal, and it was a call, not an email. We're also sort of in our federal document season, though. So you'll see, we're working on our long-range plan. I'll give you some updates later on in the meeting about our TIP and our work program and all these other documents that we'll have to submit to the federal government. I plan on just moving forward with business as usual, and I just am going to rely on them to tell me if I'm doing something wrong. So I couldn't even remember what all 9 of the words were, but they had to do with green infrastructure, justice initiatives, and all the other things that you could probably imagine. So, but for us, it's business as usual, and we'll wait to see if they have any issues with it. Certainly, I won't do anything to jeopardize our funding or anything of that nature. And if I get nervous about anything, I would, of course, just bring it to this board and have you guys give me direction on how you want to proceed. It's a good question. Any other questions?
Yeah,
about the
Kent, you
budget?
mentioned
Yeah.
that our assessments had gone down. Could you give us an idea of what that, was it a percentage or how
Yeah,
was that
so-
reduction based?
Yep. So if you have a packet in front of you, and even if you didn't, our total. So the way our budget works is that Iowa City pays a little bit extra assessment because they actually pay for some of our staff just above and beyond. So once you strip away Iowa City's extra portion, the budget for, hang on one second. The budget for this year's assessments is $211,000, so that's just the urban entities. In FY26, it was $235,000. So about a $25,000 drop.
Okay.
And Mayor, I had mentioned that, we're using a little bit more in our internal carryover funds and then a little bit more in our PL funds from the DOT. And that was about 50,000 extra. So all of our, we had some increases in our total budget because of salaries and wages and other things. And we were able to then drop that down a little bit again because of the use in those extra funds. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so about a $25,000 decrease in the urban portion of the budget. It's a good question. And, my hope is we continue to be on the same path where we get more money from the DOT and are able to keep assessments either flat or continue to lower them.
Any further questions for Kent?
I'm just going to say I'm amazed at what Kent and his excellent staff can do, and with just small budget changes annually. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Any further comments, questions? I would entertain a motion.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor respond with aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have consider approval of the fiscal year 27 Johnson County assessments for the East Central Iowa Council of Governments.
Yeah, so this is sort of the second part of our budget discussion tonight. In addition to our own budget, the MPO also collects East Central Iowa Council of Governments dues for Johnson County entities and then forwards those on to ECOG. So we essentially just act as a pass-through. This is something we've been doing for as long as I've been here, I think, the last 20 years or so. ECOG assessments are calculated on a per capita basis for each of the counties that ECOG serves, and then we in turn calculate a per capita assessment to each one of your organizations. As has been done, I think, in the last at least 5 or so years, ECOG has proposed a 2% increase for all the counties that it serves, including Johnson County. For those that may not be aware, ECOG is the regional planning association for East Central Iowa, including Benton, Cedar, Iowa, Johnson, Jones, Lynn, Tama, and Washington counties. ECOG provides planning and grant administration services in the areas of community, economic development, housing, transportation, and others. I've also included a flyer in your packets from Karen Kurt, the ECOG director, just showing some of the services that they're able to provide to your member communities. And unless you have any questions, I'd just please ask that you consider approval of the FY27 ECI COG budget. And I'm happy to try and answer any questions that I can.
I'm not seeing any questions. Would anybody care to make a motion?
I will do that, Ron.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor respond with aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next we have consider appointments to the East Central Iowa Council of Governments Board of Directors.
Yeah, so staying on the same topic with ECOG, in your November meeting packet, I had outlined the MPO entities responsible for appointments to the ECOG Board of Directors for calendar year 26. Per our bylaws, the entity responsible for appointing elected officials for 26 included Johnson County, Iowa City, and Lone Tree, and that's based on a rotation that's outlined in our bylaws. This year, Johnson County had designated John Green, County Supervisor, to actually stay on the ECOG board. The City of Iowa City had designated Megan Alter to be on the ECOG board. And the City of Lone Tree has designated Nicholas Gluba, City Council member, to be on the ECOG board. And then the county also makes a citizen representative appointment for which they have appointed Sarah Thompson, which is one of their staff members. Sarah was also on the board last year. And unless there's any questions, I simply ask that you consider approval of the appointments to the ECOG Board of Directors.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll make sure to get that information to ECOG.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have consider appointment of a representative to the Statewide Urban Design Specifications, or SUDAS Board of Directors.
Yeah, thanks. So some of you may remember doing this in the past. Every other year, we are asked to appoint an MPO representative to the Statewide Urban Design and Specifications, or SUDAS Board of Directors. SUDAS is a nonprofit organization that maintains Iowa manuals for public improvement design standards, including sanitary sewers, streets, roads, and all those assorted things. SUDAS is managed by Iowa State University's Institute for Transportation. Scott Larson, who is the city engineer for the city of Coralville, is our current representative. Scott has been on the SUDAS board since 2005. He's actually the current president, but will be stepping down this spring just due to the way the mechanics of SUDAS. Scott has indicated his willingness to serve again if it's the desire of this board. And at their January 20th meeting, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee unanimously recommended reappointing Scott. And the only requirement for the appointment is that the engineer work for one of your entities, one of the members of MPO. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, just ask that you either appoint Scott or would appoint another city engineer from one of your organizations.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to appoint Scott.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor respond with aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, item F, is discuss MPOJC orientation opportunity for board members.
Yeah, just real quick, for either new members or members that have been around a while and want a refresher, I always offer an orientation. So it's about 45 to 60-minute orientation about who we are, what we do, the kind of work we do here, how we get our funding, and all those sorts of things. So just a simple show of hands, if anyone would like to take part in that orientation, I'll make sure to reach out to you, find a time for the group, and we'll get an orientation set up. I usually do that sometime February or March timeframe.
I don't think we ever did that. So
Okay.
I would like to.
Oliver? Mike? Okay. Anyone else? No shame here. It's just one of those things I offer.
I did it last year. It was great.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay. Okay, Miles. Okay, I'll reach out and see if we can find a time to sit down. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on then to transportation planning. First item there, item A, consider approval of Federal Transit Administration Section 5037, Transit Operating Formula Funding Apportionment. And it sounds like that's Hannah.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Hannah Neal, Transportation Planner. Today, as Rod said, we are asking the Policy Board to approve the apportionment of the 5307 operating funds. The Iowa DOT has indicated that MPOJC has a total of $5,046,582 available in FY25 5307 funding assistance, and this amount includes the Small Transit Intensive Communities, or STIC funding. For more than 10 years, the MPO has used the same local formula to distribute these funds based on prior year transit statistics from each of the 3 transit agencies. The MPO's local formula was calculated based on operating maintenance costs, locally determined income, revenue miles, and fare revenue. Prior to going fare-free on August 1st, 2023, Iowa City Transit requested a review of this formula, and it should also be noted that CAMBUS does not charge a fare and has never received credit for the fare revenue portion of the formula. Although the percentage allocation to each of the transit systems has fluctuated over time, a review of past allocations showed that year over year, these changes were small. After discussion with the 3 transit managers, a consensus was reached to adopt a fixed percentage-based allocation based on a historic average, and to review those percentages if and when there are major changes to any of the systems, like routes, operating costs, things like that. At your July 11th meeting in 2023, you all approved the following fixed percentages to apportion our 5307 funds. Coralville Transit to receive 16.1%, Iowa City Transit to receive 60.5%, and University of Iowa Campus to receive the remaining 23.4%. The Section 5307 funds can be used for transit operating and capital expenses, and the tables in your packet show the FY24 total apportionment and the FY25 proposed apportionment. Once approved, the MPO will complete and submit the required annual FTA applications on behalf of each transit agency. The proposed FY25 apportionment for Coralville Transit is $812,500. Iowa City would receive $3,053,182, and CAMBUS would receive $1,180,900. So today we are asking for the approval of the apportionment of these FY25 5307 operating funds. And the Transit Advisory Committee last week approved this unanimously at their meeting. I can answer any questions you have.
Yeah, so this is another one of those where our federal funding continues to grow, which is a good thing. I think it's growing a little less quickly, but I don't think that's a symptom of anything necessarily, just the way it is with the numbers. So, but we're happy to see this number going up as well.
Why are we talking about fiscal year 25?
So that's a good question. So the funding we use is actually 1 year old. That's a decision that was made by the three transit organizations probably 20 or 30 years ago. And the idea with that was that it would make budgeting easier. And then in times when federal funding was questionable, which it has been over the last decades, then we'd be whole for an entire year. We'd be able to regroup and figure out how to pay for transit the current year, essentially. So so these funds are actually 1 year old. That's a good question. Yep.
At what? Sorry. It says July 11th, 2023. That's when this board decided on the allocation percentages.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. When is that reviewed? Like, is it on what yearly basis?
So it can be reviewed at any time. It used to be, like Hannah mentioned, it used to be part of a formula. And that formula was based on the statistics that are on the second page of your memo. Mm-hmm. And it was a formula that was created by the board and used by the board for a decade or longer. What was happening was we were using that formula, but it really was never changing. It was only changing by 0.5%, for instance.
Okay.
And rather than go through all of the work to actually get those statistics, break that down and do the actual allocations using the actual statistics, it was thought to be easier, and I think it probably is for budgeting purposes again, where we just took a 10-year average of those and said, these are the percentages over the last 10 years. They fluctuate very little, so let's just use those moving forward. Part of that was because when the city of Iowa City went fare-free, fare was part of that calculation, which would have completely thrown the prior formula sort of out of whack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And to be fair, CAMBUS never charged a fare, so they were always sort of penalized using the old formula.
We didn't want to penalize Iowa City for going fare-free.
Correct.
Essentially, yeah. Coralville would have been the only agency that still charged a fare and then got credit for that, so to speak. Right, right. Yeah, and to answer the question, we can revisit that anytime we want. I mean, anytime about this time of year before we actually make the allocations, we could, and we are free to use any formula we want. We are free to give all that funding to one organization. It funnels through the MPO, and we get to make the rules on how we distribute it. So
I think we've done it at least twice that I've been on this board.
Yeah.
Not real frequently, but every 5 years or something, 6
And I
years.
think because ridership got so skewed with COVID, I think there were a few years that we were like, we're just going to take maybe the 2019 and use that formula.
that's also, yeah, that's accurate.
We did that for about 5 years, and then once Iowa City went fare-free, we decided, oh, this is a great opportunity. Now we can come up with this formula. You all approved it, and that's what we've been using since, or this fixed percentages that we've been using.
I imagine if there was some type of major flaw in this formula, y'all would say something about it.
Yeah, I suspect we would, and even more than us, it would be the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee, right? And just as a reminder for everyone, that committee meets a week prior to this board meeting. Every iteration, we have a meeting. So every week prior, they will have met and discussed this. All three transit managers of each of the systems are on our Transportation Technical Advisory Committee. So that would be the time, I suspect, that if they weren't happy with the formula or thought it was unfair or for any other reason, it would be brought up and we'd rehash that. So
The other thing that I noted when we did this in '23 was that while CAN bus doesn't charge, they do have student fees that go to the, so just kind of obscures a little bit, but.
Any further discussion? Any more questions for Hannah? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, item B, looks like that is Hannah again, and this is public hearing and consideration of an amendment on the fiscal year 2026 to 2029 MPOJC Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. This is adding a new project, Iowa National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, NEVI Program Implementation. Hannah.
Thanks, Rod. So just as a reminder, the TIP is the programming document for all surface transportation projects that receive state or federal funds, including street and highway, transit, rail, bike, and pedestrian projects in the Iowa City urbanized area. MPOJC submits the TIP Transportation Improvement Program annually to the Iowa DOT to document the status of local transportation projects to use these state and federal funds. And to utilize these funds, projects must be in the TIP with an accurate scope and funding source. The Iowa DOT reached out and they have requested an amendment to include this new project in FY26. The Iowa National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or NEVI program, implementation at various locations. The total project cost is $1,713,058, and the federal share of this is $1,334,292. And a little bit more background on NEVI. Iowa DOT awarded over $16.2 million to install 28 new EV fast charging stations along Iowa's interstates. And the funding comes from this NEVI program, which provides dedicated funding to the construction and support of this charging equipment. The sites are no more than 1 mile from the interstate and will have a minimum of 4 chargers at each site. And again, those are the fast chargers. And there are 2 sites receiving NEVI funding in the Iowa City metro area, Francis Energy at the Highlander Hotel in Iowa City, and the other one is Quickstar at their North Liberty location. So today we are asking for the approval of the proposed TIP amendment, and the Technical Advisory Committee unanimously recommended approval at their meeting last week. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
This is just a point of curiosity.
Yeah.
Will there be signage on the highways added to say, EV chargers this way, in the same way that you've got like gas and restaurant and hotel signage, at this exit? I'm just curious.
That's a great question.
I mean, how will people know that they can charge their car?
I think there will be.
Yeah, I mean, it stands to reason, but I was just curious.
Yeah, it'll be like the logo that goes next to the gas logos and that sort of thing. The other thing that came up at the technical meeting last week is there was an article in the newspaper a couple weeks ago that the Highlander may be filing for bankruptcy. I don't know any more about it than that. So the question came up, will these still be installed? And my answer was, I don't know. I still don't know. This is DOT funding, like Hannah was saying. We don't manage this program. This just has to show up in our TIP so that those funds can actually be used. But other than that, we don't manage the program. I haven't had a chance to reach out or talk to anybody at the DOT about it, but I would presume that, the Highlander may not actually be leaving. It may just be rearranging things. So hopefully it'll still be there, and hopefully the chargers are still able to go in.
And the other piece of that is Francis Energy is listed as the recipient and not the Highlander Hotel. The Highlander Hotel is simply the location of where the charger is going to be.
Good point.
I know a large portion or just a large cost when it comes to electric buses, even though I know that's a prospect that looks less and less likely that our electric unit is going to be replaced in Iowa City. But when the time comes, I'm wondering if NEVI could potentially cover some of that cost of like the infrastructure to charge those buses.
I don't think, my understanding of this program is it wouldn't be the same to do that. But I don't know that it couldn't be. I just think that's not the way the program's set up currently.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what Hannah was saying. Some of the rules, it had to be a certain distance from the interstate. I think it's for public use. My best guess is that Francis Energy charges for this. This won't be a free service, so.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Yep.
My understanding of this program was that you had to have 24-hour restroom availability. And it proposes, I assume that would not.
I don't know that to be true, but I suspect that probably is. There was a whole list of rules that, the locations had to comply with. So, my hope is that everything works out, but like I said, I don't know if that'll be the case.
Yeah, just kind of going off that, I mean, they could easily move it from Highlander to like the Hawkeye convenience store, I believe is open 24 hours right there too.
Yep.
I would guess that's, that they looked at that location as a,
And
they need one.
yeah, that's a good point. And I think, as Hannah said, the actual funding goes to Francis Energy, not any one of these particular owners of the property. So I assume if the Highlander is uprooting and moving somewhere, I would assume Francis Energy can contact the DOT and say, hey, we've got a bit of a hiccup here. Can we utilize this in right across the street that met all the same requirements, met all the same criteria, that sort of thing? Yeah.
Any more questions?
I'll just say, as somebody who uses chargers, I mean, they are in the most random places. So I am not surprised that it would be at an empty hotel.
That is spot on, V.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairperson, if no other questions, if we could just open a public
Right,
hearing and
right.
just close it verbally,
Yes.
that's how we do it here, and then we can move on.
Is there anything else from any board members? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak about this? Anyone in the public who'd like to speak about this? Anyone in the public who'd like to speak about this? Okay, hearing none, the public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion to consider an amendment to the fiscal year 26 to 29 MPO JC Transportation Improvement Program.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next on our agenda is consider approval of a safety target setting and performance measures for the MPO as required by the Federal Highway Administration.
Yeah, thanks. So we've been through this now, 4 or 5 years. The Federal Highway Administration now requires the MPO set targets for 5 safety performance measures as part of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and then report those back to the DOT in February of each year. And I've included those safety measures there in your packet for your review. For each measure, we must choose to either adopt the state's targets, like I mentioned, which are in the packet, or set our own quantifiable target for each measure within our metropolitan area. Similar to past years, I would recommend that we again adopt the state's targets. And if any given time during the year we choose to go another way, we'll have the opportunity each year before we do this same thing. If you look at some of the performance measures, some of them look a little bit worse than others. It's sort of hard to tell. I had mentioned the same thing to you all last year, that they used to use a 75% confidence interval. Now they use an 85% confidence interval. That skews things a little bit because it kind of narrows down the targets. Page 10, which is attached, shows how the DOT comes up with all these calculations. And if you want to take a deeper dive, all that information's there. I will say on page 10, if you kind of scour through some of the information, it actually looks a little bit better than these 5-year rolling targets, I think, seem to make things. So you're happy to look through that, of course, as much as you want. And then at their November 4th meeting, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee did unanimously recommend to adopt the state's targets. And I'm happy to answer your questions that you might have.
These numbers in this table annualize that?
They are,
Your rolling average, but it's per year?
yeah, it's a 5-year rolling average, that's right. And then some of them are annualized based on the number of miles. So they're per million vehicle miles traveled, and that sort of likens things between one year and the next. And like I say, some of the actual information that's in the memo makes the rolling averages look worse than I think some of the numbers actually are. And as you heard earlier from a member of the public, and as you'll hear from one of our staff members a little later in the meeting, we're actually doing pretty good locally. So I think there's some positive things that come from these numbers. You just kind of have to dig through them a little bit. And I think you'll see most of the trends, I think, are heading in the right direction. And that really is a result of all the good work you're all making, your policies and decisions you're all making for your the member agencies of the MPO, as well as the work your engineers and planners are doing. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys might have. Otherwise, just looking for approval of adoption of the state's targets.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item D, which is consider approval of elements to the MPO-JC Long Range Transportation Plan revision. Hannah.
Thank you, Rod. I'm just going to get my memo pulled up here so you have something to look at while I'm talking. Okay. All right. So, as mentioned, MPO staff is in the process of updating the Long Range Transportation Plan. We are calling it Connect 2055. You can see on our graphic. This plan will be for the culmination of a multi-year planning process in which residents, municipal staff, and elected officials in the metro area help create a regional vision of our future transportation network. Again, this one's going out to 2055. Today, we are bringing you the plan's vision, guiding principles, and scoring criteria for your consideration. This was unanimously recommended for approval by the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee at their November meeting, and I'll walk you through it. The vision and guiding principles remain the same as the last two plans, largely because it's only been a few years and the transportation goals for our area remain largely the same. Additionally, this consistency allows for easier tracking of changes over time. So the proposed vision is as follows: to ensure the strategic use of public investments and policies for the creation of a safe, efficient, and equitable transportation network that enhances economic opportunity and growth while preserving our environment and quality of life. How are we feeling about that? If there are any questions or comments, I can take those now.
How was this put together? Or what was the process?
How do you mean?
The vision and the guiding principles, who authored it? Sorry if I missed.
Right. So I can jump into. So this is for some background. We'll be bringing you a long range transportation planning item at every meeting you'll have up until about May of next year. So this is really about an 18-month process for us to go through our long range plan process. Mm-hmm. The long range plan for us is really akin to a comprehensive plan for your organizations. And as Hannah just showed, we have to come up with a vision, we have to have guiding principles, and then of course we put together a several 100-page long plan. This is a culmination of the public input and input we got from our committees and our surveys and from this board last long range plan, which they have to be adopted every 5 years. So this is a culmination of all those efforts. We're bringing you this again this year, saying this really, we don't know if the vision should change, if the guiding principles should change. So that's Hannah's question today. And if they should change, we need to know about them early because we're sort of early on in our long range plan process. And if obviously our vision or our principles are changing, then the plan is going to necessarily change in that same fashion. So this is really a culmination of all those efforts 5 years ago. What we had asked our transportation committee, it was in November, was do you all see a reason to change this? 5 years ago, this was the vision. Presumably the vision hasn't wholeheartedly changed in 5 years, but it may have. And that's the question for you all today.
Mm-hmm. And Oliver, there are some historic, correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but there are some historic groups that have weighed in. bicyclists, disability community, League of Women Voters, organized labor.
Yep.
And so those folks get a notice, I think, that if they, to solicit comments because they've done so in the past. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's correct. And as we move through our actual drafting of the plan, this can change at any given time. But that said, if the vision's the vision and the principles are the principles, it is going to guide us sort of as we start the process. But that doesn't mean it has to stay exactly the same. So all that said, and Hannah will continue the presentation, but all that said, the sooner we know if you all have a change to any of this, the better.
Can I ask a process question? Since these are three separate things, do you want to handle this in three separate votes or a single vote?
I was going to take it as a single vote only because I didn't anticipate a ton of changes. A lot of, I think, what this may end up being, and for lack of a better term, is some wordsmithing. You know, I doubt our vision has changed a ton, but it may have, so correct me if I'm wrong. Otherwise, I sort of assume this might be a little bit of wordsmithing, or it may be, hey, we're missing a guiding principle altogether. And
I guess I'll just proceed as though this is going to be a single motion, but if anybody has something they want to change, be sure you speak up.
Correct, yes. Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to handle it. And if we end up going a different direction, that's fine too. But so all that said, I think what Hannah will present to you all is what we think is a good base. And if we need to change any of that, by all means, now's the time. But knowing that this is a lot of information, we can also work on this. We can workshop it. We can bring it back to you if the board wants, and you can see the exact same thing again at your next meeting. I would say at your next meeting, though, we probably better have a pretty good grip on it because our staff's got to get going on the actual drafting of the plan. And we're in our sort of public outreach period right now. All good questions.
So when you say you're in your public outreach, what does that entail exactly?
So we're still pulling all that together. That entails actual sort of presentations to interested parties. That's the word I'm looking for. And in fact, our staff gave a presentation to Greater Iowa City Monday? Tuesday. So we're out there trying to hit the streets and get this information in front of folks. Most of what we're trying to get in front of folks right now is just who the MPO is, why this is important, why you should be interested in it, and then we're trying to gather input. So we'll do as many presentations as we can. We do as much social media as we can, which I am relying on my staff completely for that, for obvious reasons. We will do surveys, traditional surveys, although we're trying to get away from that a little bit. And we'll be doing actual photo voice
Yes.
survey this year, which is something new to me. So, you know, we're using as much public output opportunities as we can and trying to get creative, but it's most of the traditional methods that you would think of.
And that is to gain input on the long-range plan?
So that'll be to gain input on usually the different modes. So one is just to, like I say, just to get people interested in the long-range plan and understand what it is and why they should be excited about it. As we draft the plan, and this is the same for this board, we'll bring all that information back. So we have a bike and ped section, and we'll have certain public input opportunities for that. We'll have a freight section, we'll have certain opportunities for that. Streets, bridges, and all those things. So as we're drafting it, we'll be trying to solicit as much input as we can on all those different sections. Those will go through our Regional Trails and Bicycling Committee, if they're of interest. All that information will go through our technical committee that met last week, that meets before this group every week or every meeting. And then you'll all get the same thing. And ultimately, as we move through those chapters and all that information, we'll be asking this board to approve it all. Because at the end of the day, it is the board's plan, right? I mean, it's the public's plan, but the board is the group that has to adopt it. And then we have to submit it to all our federal partners. And the final adoption is May of next year.
I can't tell if it's because it's a late hour or not, but I guess, what did you present to Greater IC? Because I'm having a hard time understanding you presenting and writing at the same time.
Yep, so what was presented to Greater Iowa City was really just what the long-range plan is and what it means.
Okay.
And then we say, hey, now that you understand that, we're going to hit you with a barrage of other things that we're going to try and get more specific feedback to. Yeah. So
what's the public going to receive so they can, I don't know, also I'm confused.
yeah, well, yeah, it's sort of like we've got two or three things going all at once, right? We're trying to get people excited about the plan. We've got to start drafting the plan, which is why we're here today, asking you about the vision and the guiding principles, because that helps us understand the direction we need to go. We are soliciting for projects that actually have to go on the plan. And any project that's going to receive federal funding from the MPO, those projects have to exist in the long-range plan. So the plan's got, it's got a dozen different things that are important in it, and it just depends on what party you're asking and what their interest might be. If I'm explaining that well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're doing about 3 or 4 different things at once, trying to get the plan shipshape.
I think they call that building the plane while flying it. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
Just checking, making
And,
sure. I'm
and
not
I
the
think
only
this
one
would
that does
be, and I think, for those of you that have been in your positions with your organizations, like I mentioned, I think this is really closest to what your comprehensive plans would be. And I know Iowa City right now is working through your comprehensive plan, but it's really the same kind of thing. Most comprehensive plans are created by consultants. They're doing the same thing. They're doing public outreach. They're doing surveys. They're coming to the boards and councils and asking your opinions on these things. The zoning questions, all those things that go into a comprehensive plan, we're essentially doing the same thing. Transportation related.
Are you going to, I know that you mentioned Greater Iowa City, so obviously you're hitting professional groups. Are you going to community groups?
As many as we can, right? So that part of the outreach with the actual presentations, we're soliciting for opportunities. So we'll reach out to any and all organizations we can and say, hey, we'd love to come give you our presentation if you'll have us.
Right. And I may be wrong on this, but I think that was sort of part of what
Yeah,
Councilor Salah was asking.
yeah. Yep, so as many organizations as we can reach out to, we will.
Yeah, I know. I just don't get are you hoping when you reach out to those people, are you just advertising and say, hey, we're doing this, or are you hoping to get feedback on those kind of things?
Depending on where we're at in the process, it could be either, right? So right now we're in this, hey,
That's what we are.
you kind of have to understand who we are and why we're doing this before we can start asking you questions about, your preferences and these kind of things. But over the course of a year or so, I mean, it's an 18-month process, but about over the course of a year, we will get as much public input as we can. And as we start to roll out those different chapters for the different modes of transportation, we will, again, try and reach out to specific groups that would have an interest in it. The one that comes to mind are bicycle and pedestrian groups. They seem to show up in droves. So when we get to working on that chapter, we will reach out to those groups specifically and say, hey, we want to have like a lunch and learn. We have a survey for you. We are doing all the other things. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So all that said, these are great questions. If you know of any organization, it could be a social group, it could be part of your, a church group, whatever it might be, we're more than happy to meet with them and talk about this because that just gets the word out and then that helps us get public feedback. And I'll be very honest, one of the things that we struggle with the most in our group is getting people interested in our long-range planning efforts. And not unlike probably what you all do in your respective positions, the long-range plan is very broad, right? It's wide. Usually people aren't as interested in that. They get real interested when you say, yeah, we're going to put a trail in your backyard or, whatever that might be. So you can all respect that. So it's hard for us to get interest in something that's so broad. And as Hannah mentioned, that goes out to 2050. People kind of gloss over and say, well, what's the importance of this? And that's what we'll try and explain to you all as we go through this for about the next year or so.
Can you give us historical perspective on when this was last done, how many times it's been done?
We have to do it. Yep, we have to do it every 5 years. If we don't, we forfeit our federal funding, which we certainly don't want to do. So it's due every 5 years. And in all honesty, I think it gets better every 5 years. I mean, I think we've been doing a really good job of it. We usually have sort of a staff member or two that take the lead on this. I took the lead, I think, on our 2007 plan, maybe. That dates me a little bit. So I think, I think as we get better on our public outreach, even though we still struggle, I think the plans have gotten better and better. These also, as I mentioned, have to be approved by our federal partners. So it's not just as though we give them it and say, here's our plan, we're done. They'll be reviewing all the material at the same time you're all reviewing it. And if we're off base, if we're unfortunately saying things that we maybe aren't supposed to say anymore, those kinds of things, they're going to give us that feedback. And then ultimately you all approve it and then they have to accept it. And part of this plan too is it's not as loose as maybe I've made it sound. There are things that have to be included in the plan for us to actually receive that funding and for it to be approved. one of those things definitely is our budgeting section on showing how much funding we think we'll have in the future and what projects you all want in the plan out until 2050. So we will work with you and especially your engineers at that point in time and say, hey, what projects or transportation projects will you all have out until 2050 that you think you might need federal funding for? And that's difficult to do, right? Because every day you guys are getting hit with with different funding requests and things that are failing and that sort of thing. So we really hammer hard on your guys' engineers and trying to get them to pin down projects.
Where to find the previous plan?
Yeah, all of the previous, I shouldn't say all the previous plans, at least the previous plan, which we're currently operating under, is on our website, mpojc.org. Yep. And I'm glad you asked that question. All of this, as well as all of our public opportunities and all of those things, will also be on our website, mpojc.org.
Kent,
Those are great questions.
since we're forecasting, and I know we'll see specific sections at each meeting where we may want to make specific changes, but I just want to be sure we're not like removing passenger rail.
No, definitely not. No, and that's one of the things. That's one of the projects. So what we have to do is part of what we do is actually budget how much federal funding we'll receive out to 2052, which is easier said than done. We look at historic averages. Our federal partners have to agree with what we say we're going to receive. And then all of our projects actually have to fit within our budget. So it has to be fiscally constrained. That's one of the things. Something like the Burlington Street Bridge, for instance, in Iowa City, that Iowa City's now working on replacing. Something like passenger rail with those really big price tags, they will likely have to go in as an illustrative project.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't be fiscally constrained. Let's say it's a $100 million project. We only have a couple $100 million out till 2050. We'll mark that as an illustrative project. But being in the plan, even though it's not fiscally constrained, still helps.
Yes.
We would still have to amend it in, but I think the idea with an illustrative project is it won't move forward without a grant anyway. And that may not, the other federal grants wouldn't be required, wouldn't have the same requirement for a project necessarily to be in our plan, if that makes sense. So, yeah. So those really big ticket sort of wish list items that are very hard to fund, those will be an illustrative project, more than likely. These are great. This is more excitement than we've had about the plan since we started. So. And I'll say too, before Hannah continues, that we are just getting started. Internally, we've had to come up with logos and we've had to discuss how we're going to do our public input. And, we've been talking about it and working at it for about 6 months, maybe 6 months or so now. But really come January 1st is when we really start the plan in earnest. And staff's been talking about this. I mean, we really have to hit the ground running, start writing it, start drafting material, getting it out in front of you all, getting in front of the public. Otherwise, we fall behind.
Maybe this is too specific, but I am curious if past plans have incorporated, electrified single-user vehicles, e-bikes, scooters. There's not like a group that's promoting that. Is that part of this? Because there's kind of a desire, I think, to further segregate our transportation network across these different modes of transportation. Is that part of this, and does this vision address that?
Yeah, no, I think it does. There's the mobility. One of our guiding principles is somewhere in here. We've got we've got some things about mobility in here and expanding mobility. And yes, Josh, I think to answer your question, we have all that information in there, right?
Yeah,
and that's where some of our staff expertise comes in, where we know there's some of these sort of elephants in the room, and we will include all that information in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Autonomous cars is the tough one. We were all told
And trucks.
10 years ago that we'd all be using them now. Of course, that's stalled out a little bit. So those are the kind of things where we have to try and forecast what'll happen. And that's where we reach out to experts as much as we can to get that information. That's a good question.
I suppose actually talking about thoughts may be left for the discussion part of rather than bringing it up now. But so yeah, I mean.
No, I think now is great. Yeah, if you have comments.
Yeah. The only thing that kind of I was taken aback by, not by I think any malevolence or anything like that. I just think such a long range plan into 2050, 2055, and I guess, and I don't know if the guiding principles are numbered in terms of what is the most important, but I feel like it sets a tone and a precedent at the top being economic opportunity above environment, quality of life, system preservation, choice, safety, efficiency, health, and equity, which I would put above economic opportunity as just like a, especially we live in a planet on fire. I guess that was what was going on in my head. That's why I asked the question, how this was put together. And this is just one guy's thought. So.
No, it's a great question, and I can tell you there is no rhyme or reason for 1 through 9 here. I mean, there's no weighted of importance or anything. So, and this is the kind of thing that is, may have been lost on me, but this is the kind of feedback that's great. The other thing I'll say that's popped in my mind now too is our guiding principles are also tied to our scoring criteria. So as part of all the projects that go in the long-range plan, they also have to get screened by the scoring criteria that you all have approved or will approve again. That's also in Hannah's presentation tonight, is wanting to look at the scoring criteria as well. So under each one of these guiding principles in the past plan and in the future plan, we're actually tracking performance measures under each one of these. And then also these, again, sort of guide the scoring criteria. We have those broken down into sections as well. So this is all great feedback. We can talk about this as long as we want. And I will say too, again, that if we need more time to workshop this in front of you all, we can bring it back at the next meeting as well, or next meetings if we need to. I would say in between, even if this is approved tonight, generally speaking, if we say, yeah, we're on board with the vision, the guiding principles, and the scoring criteria, that doesn't mean you all individually can't also just reach out and say, hey, maybe economic opportunity shouldn't be number 1. We'd rather it be number 9. It would be sort of a non-substantive change too, right? So, I mean, that kind of juggling and those kind of things seem like they would be just fine.
Yeah, and I guess that would be what I was wondering. What is would be a substantive change? Like, what do you think the guiding principles in the future in 20 years, if someone sees this, they're going to be like, all right, I have to think about economic opportunity before the environment.
Right.
Those are the questions that I wanted answered. So I very much appreciate it.
Appreciate your questions.
Great. Good discussion. I guess I can move on. And we kind of already started talking about these a little bit, but these guiding principles or goals, these are just kind of our overarching. And like Kent said, as we drill down on these a little bit more and as we prepare and finalize our chapters, you will have the opportunity to review and eventually approve these chapters. So as you can see on our list, our guiding principles, we have economic opportunity, environment, quality of life, system preservation, choice, safety, efficiency, health, and equity. And these, again, no rhyme or reason to why they're listed the way they are. If you say we want them alphabetized, great. If you say whatever, we're happy to change that. So now let me switch over to our scoring. Yes, these are the same as 5 years ago. And the thought kind of behind the same with the vision and the guiding principles, one of the thoughts behind keeping them the same or similar, it hasn't really changed in the last 5 years, and to help track trends over time. Because again, these are tied to our scoring criteria, which we can dive into. Okay, so we had a few proposed changes. Economic opportunity, no substantive changes there. Environment, we added a new criterion, 2C, to focus on soil health. 2A focuses on air quality, and 2B focuses on water quality. And we also changed the points to 3 points for each of these criterion, weighting each one equally, and there are a total of 9 possible points. That is our suggestion. Okay, and if you have any questions at any point, or you want to discuss anything, please stop me.
And just as a reminder before Hannah goes on too, so this scoring criteria is used by this board to allocate our funds, right? And that's something we did last year. We do it every 2 years. So the same scoring criteria, the theory here is that we'll use the same scoring criteria to actually screen projects that will be in our fiscally constrained plan. And you will all see that later. But the idea is that we're actually soliciting for those projects. Well, we are soliciting for those projects now, and we're going to need something to screen those against, score them, and then essentially show you all those projects 2 or 3 meetings from now. And the changes you see here were changes that the technical advisory committee wanted to see. So engineers, your transit managers, planners.
And for those who submit projects, they know the criteria?
Correct. Yep.
When you talk about our technical staff, like the engineers and planners providing recommendations for changes and improving them, one of the things I was questioning was like the, what's it called? Maintaining system maintenance.
System preservation.
Thank you. System preservation. When we think so far into the future and talking about multimodal transportation, I wasn't sure about increasing, the possible score for that. I can also see how engineers and planners might want to ensure, for example, in Iowa City, that we're maintaining our road infrastructure, and we know that that's going to be an issue as far as funding in the next few years. But just for Iowa City only in our strategic plan, we say when prioritizing the needs of different modes, pedestrians, bicycles, transit riders, and other emerging forms of transportation, these are weighted greater than those of automobile drivers and adjacent property owners. And so if one of the higher, if we're increasing scoring criteria to maintain the current, to preserve the current system, we might be skewing that contrary to what we were looking at in our
I remember
vision.
that coming up, but in a different context, when we were talking about an extension of 965 south. And the argument was there are existing roads that need to be repaired. And rather than build a new road, we should repair the roads we already have. And so it wasn't really contemplating a completely different mode, but we changed the criteria at that time to emphasize existing stuff over new stuff.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. And the way our scoring criteria works for system preservation is, if any of those new modes or any of the improvements that would be necessary for those modes, say putting passenger rail on the Crandall Railroad, for instance, that would be system preservation for us. You're just improving an already existing system. If we were to add protected bike lanes, like an actual physical barrier, which I know Iowa City's been talking about, that would be system preservation for us too, because it's an existing facility. I mean, you're making improvements to an existing right of way, essentially.
Okay.
Yep. So you would get points for that.
It's interesting.
That helps. That helps a little
That
bit.
does
Yeah.
help. Thank you.
So I think it addresses a lot of that. Really, to Rod's point, historically at least, the way this has been used as system preservation was to try and funnel, our scarce federal funding and local funding into things that we already owned and operated, right?
Yeah.
Rather than blazing a new trail. It could be, in this case, a trail, but blazing a new trail or road through essentially a cornfield.
What you've just described is adaptation and reinvestment, not preservation.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe.
Any further discussion on the first two? Okay, we can move on to number 3, quality of life. We introduced a new criterion, 3B, that emphasizes access to healthcare options and healthy food. This addition enhances our quality of life goal by ensuring areas support the needs of residents throughout their lives. Any thoughts or discussion?
When I saw this, I liked it a lot.
Thank you very much. Number 4, we kind of touched on this a little bit already. We introduced a new criterion 4B that rewards projects aimed at improving pavement conditions or bridges that are categorized as poor or very poor. These projects will receive more points as compared to those that merely maintain existing facilities.
And maybe this one, to Josh, to your point, maybe for this one, for system preservation, this is kind of the engineering description of system preservation. But, maybe it should just say maintains, adapts, and, whatever, existing facilities in good, reliable position. Maybe it's just a matter of the
I
term
think
we're
that
using.
what you described is great.
Yeah.
That the words weren't in alignment. So
not the right number of points for that then, given the discussion.
It's a good question.
Looks like there's 6 points total. You can get 3 points for maintenance or improvement to existing facility or infrastructure, and 3 points for project improvements, pavement condition, or bridges that are in poor or very poor condition.
And in this case, an improvement would be sort of that adaptation as well. That's how we would score it. Really what the technical committee's done here is added even more weight towards existing facilities. I mean, that's the way I see this, is saying, you know, this is extremely important and kind of even throwing more weight towards it by having this additional 3 points.
It's like you're only adding 1 point.
Yes, total. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, we dropped the 1 from 5 to 3 and then added 3, so yes. Yeah.
My apologies, Chairperson. I need to take off to another meeting.
Okay.
We can move on to efficiency. Speaking of, you're all good. Have a good night. We will be efficient with the rest of our time. So efficiency, there were no substantive changes there. Any discussion? Great. Choice under, oh, sorry, here I can move this too. Under choice, we have removed the term trail or wide sidewalk from criterion 6B and replaced it with side path. And this clarification is necessary because criteria 8, which you can see here, health provides points for trail projects, so we did not want to double count. Okay, moving on to safety. No substantive changes there. And number 8, health. We revised the health criteria to differentiate between regional trails, linking communities such as Iowa River Corridor Trail and the Northridge Trail, and neighborhood trails such as Willow Creek Trail and Muddy Creek Trail. So just some clarification there. Number 9, equity. We are recommending removing criterion 9B. About a decade ago, communities were in the process of developing ADA transition plans, and this criterion aimed to provide additional credit for those projects. However, over the years, we have not awarded any project points based on this criterion during our funding cycles. And in fact, when prioritizing projects for the long-range transportation plan, we granted points to only 1 project under this criterion. So we're just recommending that we remove criterion 9B.
In any project that's funded with federal funds has to be ADA compliant anyway. So this was the aim of this, like Hannah was saying, to retrofit whole swaths of communities and that sort of thing, and it just never, those projects never materialized. So it's not as though we're removing any ADA importance here.
Any further discussion? Okay. And finally, local commitment, no changes from the previous scoring criteria. So these scoring criteria, like Kent said, will be used to score projects for the long-range transportation plan. And please also think of these in terms of our STBG, TAP, and CRP grant process. And you will have another crack at reviewing the scoring criteria for those projects when that time comes in the fall, I think.
So just keep in mind, this scoring criteria, we're going to get hundreds of projects from your organizations, and we just have to narrow that down to a fiscally constrained list. It remains to be seen how many of those projects sort of have to get kicked off the list, but suffice it to say that most, I think, of the quality projects and most of your most important projects in your organizations will still make the list, right? The scoring criteria is just a tool for us to sort of weed out that bottom, say, the third of projects or bottom half of projects. So while it's important, it's not as though it's going to kick out any specific project that you probably all want to see in the plan.
And even if they're not going to get funded, they can be on the illustrative list too.
Correct.
So, all of that being said, Today, we are asking for approval of the vision, guiding principles, and draft scoring criteria for the MPOJC Long Range Transportation Plan revision. And again, the Technical Advisory Committee unanimously recommended approval at their November meeting. Also, to Kent's point, if you want more time with this, you're more than welcome to have that, and we can revisit at the next meeting if need be. Any other questions?
Just wordsmithing and suggestions don't exclude approval tonight. Like if
Yeah, I think-
on balance here, but we'd like to see
If it's
shift
not-
here, here's a suggestion
Yeah,
to
I think it's-
consider. That's
Correct.
Within scope.
And we still have to ask the public their thoughts about those too, right? I mean, this is where it all kind of works simultaneously.
Okay.
If there's any substantive changes, I think we would want to bring it back to you all. You know, if you want to change the local commitment and flip it on its head, I think we would want to bring that back to you. But yeah, I mean, if it's wordsmithing, if it's just, hey, can we reorder a few things? I think all that's just fine. At the end of the day, you'll be getting the entire plan to approve. And at some point in time, if you say, hey, I missed this, or this got past me, clearly there'll be plenty of time for you to make those comments. Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. It's a great question.
Any further discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next we have update on the MPO, excuse me, on the MPOJC fiscal year 27 transportation planning work program and fiscal year 27 to 30 transportation improvement program schedules.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll get through this here pretty quick, just in the sake of time. Just a couple of quick updates, things to keep in your minds. The first is our transportation planning work program. That's a document developed each year to identify what projects we work on in the following fiscal year. That's an effort involving your all staffs that are on our technical advisory committee, as well as you, and then our federal partners. We will begin soliciting for those projects next week, so I'll be reaching out to all your staff soliciting for projects. That said, if there's any projects you all have in mind that the MPO could be of assistance with, please feel free to contact myself, share that with your staffs, however you want to do that, just so the message gets to us. We put that in our work program. You all will approve that later this year. We send it off to our federal partners, they approve it, and then we're good to go. So, and again, that can be anything and everything from transportation studies to public outreach with respect to transportation. We've done some onboard surveys for transit agencies in recent history, the whole smattering of things that you all know that we do. Any questions about the work program? The second one is the Transportation Improvement Program, and we've talked about this just a little bit tonight in various places. Our Transportation Improvement Program is the programming document for any federal funds that we all are allocating to your agencies. That includes funding for streets, roads, bridges, trails, transit, and the like, transit funds you actually allocated earlier tonight. All of that has to be included in our TIP. The importance of that is no federal funding can go to a project without being in our TIP in the proper year. We will work with all your staffs to make sure that's the case and we don't miss anything. This board allocated $10.4 million in our surface transportation block grant funds last year, $2.1 million in transportation alternative program funds, and $3.1 million in carbon reduction program funds. All of those funds will be reflected in this upcoming TIP. In July, so we'll bring a draft to you at your next meeting, and then in July you'll get the final for approval, and then we share that with our federal partners. So just things to keep in mind. So work program projects or, the federal funding you don't have to worry about so much, but keep the work program in mind, and if there's anything that we can help you with, make sure to reach out to staff. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, not seeing any, so we'll move on to other business. Is there any other business from anybody?
We did have one just quick thing, and Sarah will be quick, I'm sure, in the sake of time, but.
I think most of you probably found this at your seat, and we just wanted to raise your attention to it, as was mentioned earlier this evening. The DOT did report, the lowest number of fatalities in 100 years is pretty incredible. That's more than 100 fewer fatalities than there was in 2024. 2024 was not a good year, but still, that is a huge reduction. And then we were delighted to see that within our boundaries of the MPO, our communities, including the portions of I-380 and 80 and 218 that pass through our communities, there were 0 fatalities. That's a great thing. And that the serious injury crashes were reduced by 29%. So this is part of our SS4A, the data that we're looking at as part of that. We track that data anyway, but we'll be bringing you more reports in the future. And I think one of the reasons it's important to mention this is things may change next year. We might get back on a different, unfortunate pattern. That would be unfortunate. But that zero, that vision zero idea is possible. Like things are improving or doing better. So we know that we can make that better in the future with different countermeasures and awareness of behaviors and things like that. So just wanted to bring it to your attention.
It's great news. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else from anybody? Seeing nothing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thanks, everyone, for the time. I
Meeting
really
adjourned.
appreciate it.